Let's begin with our motivation. Let's begin by getting the wires out of the way. So again, we have the fortune to listen to the Buddha's teachings as spoken by Nagarjuna, and especially the chapter on now where he's explaining the way for the highest good, the way to actualize liberation and full awakening, so the actual antidote to the afflictions, which is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And so we again have the opportunity to listen to these teachings, to take them in and really hear them and remember them and contemplate them afterwards. And in that way put imprints on our mind so that we can realize the ultimate nature, the emptiness that is here all the time, that is the nature of ourselves and all phenomena, but that we don't see at all. And so let's do this, not only for our own freedom from cyclic existence, but to combine it with the bodhicitta and work for the freedom of all living beings. Okay, so we finished verse 92 last time, and there we were talking about mutual dependence, how things are empty of inherent existence because they exist dependent upon each other, mutually dependent on each other, like agent, object, and action, like long and short, cause and effect, all these different kinds of things. And so really thinking about that, especially the mutual dependence, and that being a reason to prove that things are therefore empty of having their own inherent existence. So verse 93, the sage, meaning the Buddha, has stated that earth, water, fire, and wind, long and short, thick and thin, virtue, and so on, cease in the awareness of the ultimate. Okay, so all these things that exist in a mutually dependent way, then all of them are not perceived by the wisdom realizing emptiness, okay, which is the wisdom that sees things actually as they are. Okay, so there's a syllogism here. Earth, for example, and it could be any of these other things listed, is not inherently existent because it is not seen by the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise. Okay, so the idea is that the Buddha had said that they cease from, in the awareness of the Arya's meditative equipoise on the ultimate. Yeah. So if the idea is, if inherent existence were the ultimate nature of things, then since the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise saw the ultimate nature, saw things as they actually are, then it would see inherent existence. Okay? But it doesn't see inherent existence, and in fact, it sees the opposite. It sees non-inherent existence. It sees that things are empty. Okay? So when it says that these conventionalities cease in the awareness of the ultimate, it doesn't mean that conventional things existed, and then when you realize emptiness, all of a sudden conventional things stop existing. And then even when you come out of meditative equipoise, they no longer exist, okay? It doesn't mean that. When it says they cease in that perspective, it means that, since if they were inherently existent, they would be seen. Since they aren't inherently existent, they aren't seen. Okay? So then you could say, well, why doesn't that wisdom see, all these different things? They exist, don't they? So why doesn't that wisdom see them? Because these things exist in a deceptive manner. Yeah? They appear, the way they appear is not concordant with the way they exist. Okay? So they appear truly existent, they don't exist in that way. That wisdom sees them as they actually are. So it can't see them as appearing truly existent, because that's not how they actually are. Okay? Yeah? You following that? So this wisdom is a non-conceptual wisdom that directly and non-conceptually perceives emptiness. Okay? So this is a non-dualistic mind, so there's no appearance of subject and object. There's no consciousness here that's realizing emptiness over there. Okay? But it's said that the subject and the object are completely merged, like water put in water, and that's because the mind is realizing its own nature. Yeah, so completely non-dualistic. Okay, and so to that mind, only emptiness appears. Conventional objects don't appear. Inherent existence doesn't appear. Yeah, subject and object don't appear. Yeah, this mind is completely mixed with emptiness. Okay? So it perceives things as they really are. Okay? So if they existed inherently, this wisdom would see them. It doesn't see them. They don't exist inherently. Okay? The conventional things are not in the purview of this wisdom. Yeah? Just as sound is not in the purview of the visual consciousness. The visual consciousness not seeing sound doesn't mean sound doesn't exist. It just means that it's not an object of that kind of consciousness. So conventional things that appear falsely, yeah, are not an object that can be known by the wisdom realizing emptiness. Yeah. So those things exist conventionally, they exist falsely, yeah, because they don't exist as they appear. So it's really kind of tricky here, because we say they're false, they appear in a totally false way. So our mind wants to say, well, then they must be non-existent. If the appearance, if the inherently existent flower that I see does not exist, then what are you talking about conventional existence for? Okay, so the inherently existent flower does not exist. That does not mean that the flower doesn't exist. The flower does exist. Okay, how does it exist? Dependently on, on being merely imputed by name and concept. Okay? But that flower that is merely dependent is not the one that appears to the visual consciousness of sentient beings, because all the consciousnesses of sentient beings, except the Arya's wisdom realizing emptiness, have the appearance of true existence. So all the consciousnesses of sentient beings, except that wisdom of the Aryas, is mistaken in that things appear truly existent, but they aren't. That doesn't mean, saying that they're mistaken, doesn't mean that they're erroneous. Yeah, the eye consciousness can still see a color and identify the color, even though that color is appearing truly existent to it. Okay? So, in general, if things exist, they don't have to be seen by the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise that sees reality. Okay? Because they aren't, if things exist, they aren't necessarily in the purview, in the domain of that kind of wisdom. Yeah. Then part of our mind goes, but if all these things exist and that wisdom can't see that, then what use is that wisdom? Yeah? It's like all these things exist and it can't see them, so why do we need that wisdom? Because that wisdom sees things as they actually exist. It sees the ultimate nature. Yeah, and by seeing the ultimate nature, that wisdom overcomes our ignorance, which is the source of our samsara. So that wisdom is quite important, even though that wisdom does not see you and me and, the telephone bill and everything else, okay, that we think are so important. Yeah. Okay. So in the then verse 94 and 95 go together. Earth, water, fire, and wind cannot find any place to exist in that undemonstrable, limitless, fully sovereign awareness. Long and short, subtle and coarse, virtue and non-virtue, are all, and also name and form, all cease in this awareness. So again, emphasizing, that earth, water, fire, air, all these different things, they have no base. They're undemonstrable. They have no base in that they have no truly existent base. Yeah. So they can't find any place to exist from their own side, because seen by this wisdom, which knows things as they are gone, all these truly existent things. So this wisdom awareness is undemonstrable in that it can't be shown to another person in the same way that we can show somebody an apple, or I can say, here, this is a packet of tissues, this is what it looks like. We can't say, oh, here's emptiness, or here's the wisdom realizing emptiness. Look at it, and then you'll know what it is. It's not something that you can point out to somebody else. Yeah, it's something that we have to experience for ourselves, and we have to experience it as Arya beings, because only Aryas have that wisdom and can see emptiness directly. Okay? So in the perspective, again, of this ultimate wisdom, earth, water, fire, and wind can't find any place to exist. Because they appear truly existent, they cannot be seen. Okay, there's no footing for them to stand on. Because what appears to our ordinary, confused mind, ignorant mind that is influenced by ignorance, does not appear to the wisdom consciousness. Okay? So long, short, you know what they are, subtle and coarse, virtue and non-virtue. Name and form is the fourth of the 12 links. Yeah, so none of these things can be seen by that wisdom. The wisdom's pretty special, okay? And so while you can't describe it in words, all they can really say is it's like space. Yeah, but yeah, we have a hard time even understanding space, don't we? Our minds don't have no space, you know. They're completely cluttered, and our sense consciousnesses are cluttered. And so we see space, and the only thing we can think of is space out. But it doesn't mean that. Okay. So, yeah, okay. So there's one sutra that says not seeing is the best seeing. Okay, not seeing is the best seeing. So don't think that this sutra statement is advocating blank-minded meditation, like not seeing anything is the best kind of seeing, and so let's just empty our mind of all thoughts and, you know, do blank-minded meditation and nothingness. No, that's not what it's talking about. What it does mean is that not seeing inherent existence is the best kind of seeing, is the exalted kind of seeing. Okay, not seeing inherent existence is the best seeing. Okay, so then the question comes, well, in comparison to what is this not seeing considered supreme or holy? Okay. Second. So it's the not seeing of the Arya's meditative equipoise on emptiness. Okay, no, let me say this better here. Okay, so the not seeing of an Arya's meditative equipoise on emptiness, meaning the not seeing of inherent existence of that Arya's equipoise, is far superior to the inferential realization of emptiness that ordinary beings have. Okay? So when you say not seeing, you know, in comparison, you know, it's supreme or holy in comparison to what? You know, you'd think, ordinary consciousnesses that see dualistically. But no, it's well, in one way, this is an ordinary consciousness that sees dualistically. It is. It's an inferential realization of emptiness, which makes a profound impact on the mind. But to that mind, there's still the appearance of subject and object. There's still the appearance of conventional phenomena. Yeah. So that mind isn't completely non-dualistic. Okay. Now here it says true existence and conventional phenomena still appear to this mind. You're perceiving emptiness through the medium of a conceptual appearance. So yeah, that conceptual appearance would appear truly existent. Wow. Because it's a conventional phenomena. Even though it's a conceptual appearance of emptiness. Because remember, all the consciousnesses except the Arya's wisdom realizing emptiness have the appearance of true existence. Even you're apprehending emptiness. Yeah, so there's still some slight, you know, something tinged, yeah. And that's why you have to keep meditating in order to cut through that veil of that appearance. Okay? So, so while an inferential realization of emptiness is powerful, it's still a conceptual consciousness, isn't it? Yeah, it realizes emptiness with the dualistic appearance of subject and object. True existence and conventional phenomena still appear to that mind. Okay, so it's not like water poured in water. It's getting there, but not completely. Okay, so again, the fact that the Arya's wisdom doesn't see conventional phenomena doesn't make them non-existent. It just means that those things are not in the purview of that wisdom. Okay? Then 96. All to which previously appeared to awareness due to not knowing that reality, later will likewise cease in awareness because one has come to know that reality. Okay, so all that previously appeared to awareness due to not knowing emptiness, so all these conventional things that appear truly existent, later will likewise cease in awareness, meaning they don't appear to that awareness because one has come to know their reality, their emptiness. Now here somebody has a doubt. Somebody says, do all conventional objects cease in the perspective of the Arya's meditative equipoise on wisdom because this wisdom destroys conventionalities? Okay, so does this wisdom make all those conventional things non-existent? Okay, so does it make the conventional things non-existent? Or another doubt is, does wisdom make things that were previously not empty, empty? Okay, so before things were inherently existent, and now wisdom makes them non-inherently existent. Okay, so if conventionalities existed inherently, but Arya's wisdom did not see them, then that wisdom would destroy things that previously existed. Okay, so if things did exist inherently, okay, then that Arya's wisdom should see them, because that would be their ultimate nature. And if it didn't see them, then it would destroy them completely. They would become non-existent. Okay. However, that's not what happens. They never existed inherently to start with. Okay? So the wisdom realizing emptiness does not change the way that things exist. They've been empty all along. What changes by realizing emptiness is our ignorance gets overcome. But the status of how phenomena exist does not change. Okay? And for that reason, emptiness is not nihilistic. Okay? Because, the Prasangikas are always getting accused of being nihilistic and saying nothing exists. They're not saying that. What they're saying is things have never inherently existed. And all we're doing is proving that they've never inherently existed. So you can see the way they've existed all the time. So we're not changing how things exist at all. Okay? So why are you calling us nihilistic? Because we aren't changing how things exist. Okay? We're just stating how they've actually existed, but none of us have realized that except the Aryas. So it's an interesting way, for showing why they aren't nihilistic. Yeah, because they're not, changing. They're not changing phenomena at all. All they're changing is that realization. All that's changing is our mind and how we see phenomena. Yeah? So that's kind of something when you really think about it. because we're always trying to change the world. Yeah? And now it's like, no, the world's always been, things are the way they are. We have to change our minds so that we see them accurately. And then we go, well, I see things accurately. What are you talking about? Yeah? Here's a thermos cup, and here's tissues, and there's a recorder, and here's a mouse. So what in the world are you doing telling me that I don't see things accurately? Yeah? Somebody could really say that. Well, that shows how ignorant we are, because we don't see how distorted our perceptions are. It's like, coming back to my sunglasses example. The person born wearing sunglasses doesn't realize that things are actually a lot lighter. And if somebody tries to tell them that they're lighter, they say, you're crazy. I've always seen them dark like this. This is how they must exist. Okay? So the wisdom, if you take off your sunglasses, you're not making things that used to be dark light. You're just seeing them as they actually are for the first time. Okay? But, really, we have a big problem because we don't even have a clue how distorted our perceptions are. We have no clue. Yeah? Okay? Unless you really kind of sit and contemplate for a while, and contemplate dependency, or, search and ask yourself how things exist, then maybe you get a little sense that, boy, my mind is, out in left field somewhere. Okay. So, the appearance of inherent existence is not, or inherent existence is not conventionality's ultimate mode. So it doesn't appear to the mind that sees the ultimate mode of existence. Okay? And that wisdom also doesn't make things that used to be inherently existent not inherently existent. Yeah, they've been that way the whole time. Okay? So emptiness exists primordially. Things by their very nature have lacked inherent existence. No one created inherent existence. And because anyway, it doesn't exist. So how could anybody create it? Yeah, you can only create things that exist. We see inherent existence, which doesn't exist. Okay, but also nobody created emptiness. Emptiness is just the way things are. Yeah, nobody made things empty. Okay, so there's an example of, somebody who has vitreous floaters. The name of this has stumped translators for many decades. And so I asked our friend, who's an ophthalmologist, what is it called when you see floating hairs? Yeah, because none of the translators knew. They used to say cataracts, but that's not cataracts. So he said vitreous floaters. Yeah. So I guess the vitreous is the part in the middle of the eyeball, and then there's the appearance of these things that don't exist there, or that there's an appearance of falling hair, but there's no falling hair.
I have them.
Huh?
I have them. You see, they're in your eyeball, but you see it like out there. They just float.
And
Yeah.
they blink, they move, they go
Up and down,
I
and
think that what's here, or
yeah,
what's it?
right.
So it seems like they're out there.
Yeah, looks like they're out there. Okay, so from the outset, Okay, so for example, if somebody's eyesight is obscured by vitreous floaters, yeah, then they can't see things clearly. They look at, at the thermos cup and there's, falling hairs all over it and they go, ooh, okay. So from the side of the thermos cup, it's been free of falling hairs the whole time. Yeah, the person's eyesight is obscured, and that's why they can't see it. When you cure the disease, then they can see it as it has always been. Yeah, so it's not that curing the eye disease makes all this hair that used to be on the cup go away. There was never any hair there. Okay, so you use that analogy a lot. Okay, so similarly, when ordinary beings' minds are covered by afflictive obscurations, they cannot see the emptiness of inherent existence. That has always been the ultimate nature of phenomena. They can't see that emptiness. So the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise does not see as non-inherently existent something that formerly was inherently existent. It doesn't make things empty. They've been empty the whole time. Okay, then 97. It is maintained that all beings and their qualities are fuel for the fire of awareness. Having incinerated by brilliant, true analysis, they are all pacified. So when fire burns fuel, the fuel ceases to exist. Yeah, when the Arya's wisdom of meditative equipoise sees emptiness, all the conventional phenomena that appear inherently existent cease in the sense that they don't appear to that wisdom. Okay, it's saying that again. Okay, the wisdom doesn't make them non-existent, but they just do not exist for that wisdom. Okay? So just as the sun's light eliminates the darkness, Arya's wisdom, directly seeing reality, pacifies all the appearances, all the dualistic appearance, so that, and sees the ultimate nature. However, when Aryas come out of their meditative equipoise, then conventionalities appear to them again. Okay? How do they appear? They still appear truly existent, but the Arya knows now that that's a false appearance. And so in that way, the Arya sees them as like illusions. Because illusions appear falsely, don't they? They appear one way, but they exist another way. When you look at a person in a hologram, yeah, it appears that to be a real person, but there's not a person. When you see a person on the computer screen, it looks like a real person, but it's not a real person. Okay? So those are things that are like illusions. Examples of seeing things that don't exist the way they appear. Okay. Then 98. The reality is later ascertained of what was formerly imputed by ignorance. When a thing is not found, how can there be a non-thing? Okay. The reality is later ascertained of what was formerly imputed by ignorance. So conventional things that were imputed by ignorance, yeah, designated, and then, by the mind and appearing truly existent, when the reality of them is ascertained, okay, their non-inherent existence, okay. So when a thing is not found, how can there be a non-thing? Okay? So when nothing is found to be inherently existent, how can emptiness, which is a non-thing, be inherently existent. That's what it's saying, okay? So let's go into it. So ignorance means not knowing, okay? The distorted mind, not this distorted mind, is blind not only to the ultimate nature of reality, yeah, that it doesn't see it, but it superimposes true existence on what is not truly existent, okay? After we study and reflect and meditate on the teachings on emptiness, we ascertain reality and understand that the actual way things exist is that they're empty, okay? So it is clear to us that the true existence imputed or projected by ignorance does not exist at all. Okay, so then somebody says, although things don't truly exist, that non-true existence itself truly exists. Okay, so that true existence means it's emptiness. Okay, so the mouse doesn't truly exist, but the ultimate nature of the mouse truly exists. Okay, this is part of what the Chittamadrans are saying. Yeah, the ultimate nature truly exists, and the Jonangpas say that too. Okay, it's really there. Yeah. So this is kind of like, and actually this is why I don't agree with translating ultimate nature as absolute nature. Because the word absolute nature gives us, it implies that it's an absolute that's unrelated to everything else. And emptiness is related to other things. It's the ultimate nature, but it's not some kind of reality in Never Never Land that's totally separate and apart from our world. Yeah. I remember Lama Yeshe so clearly saying, you know, it's here right now. You don't have to create it. You don't have to go anywhere. You just have to see what's here right now. Yeah? So it's not some absolute truth in Never Never Land that, you know, you have to, I don't know, do some kind of crazy thing to get to or to see or something. It's here. It's the ultimate nature of everything around us, and it's our own ultimate nature that we're clueless about. Okay? So this person's saying, okay, nothing, you know, I don't inherently exist, nothing else inherently exists. But emptiness must inherently exist, you know, because if all these other things aren't real, and emptiness is the only thing that's real, well, reality means true existence. So this person has completely missed the point, because reality means emptiness. But they're still thinking that reality means something findable that you can really hold on to and say, this is the ultimate nature. It exists completely independent of everything else. But that's not the way emptiness exists. Because emptiness exists in dependence upon the objects, the conventional objects that it is the emptiness of. Okay? Emptiness is the ultimate nature of something. So that object and its emptiness, you know, are there together. They depend on each other. You can't have the object without the object being empty. And you can't have the emptiness of that object without that object existing. Yeah? Okay? So emptiness is not some absolute, truly existent, independent reality out there. It's completely dependent. So you know, this person who's saying that you know, emptiness is truly existent is way off base. Because when Nagarjuna is saying, when a thing is not found, how can there be a non-thing? So, you know, okay, so when we search with analysis to see if things are truly existent, and we don't find any truly existent things, then how could a non-thing, the emptiness of true existence, of the true existence of things, be truly existent? Okay, the non-finding of inherently existent things, meaning the emptiness of inherently existent things, is not inherently existent because things themselves aren't inherently existent. Yeah. So if the mouse were inherently existent, then the emptiness of the mouse maybe could be inherently existent. Okay. But the mouse is not inherently existent. So how could something that depends on the mouse be inherently existent? Yeah, because something that depends on something else, as soon as you hear the word depends, it means it's not independent, means it's not inherently existent. Okay, then 99. Since it is merely the absence of form, space is merely a designation. How can there be form without the elements? Therefore, the mere designation also does not exist. It's another one of the verses His Holiness gave us to contemplate. Okay, so this is refuting the inherent existence of unconditioned space. Okay, so first we're talking about unconditioned space. Okay, it's merely the absence of form. So that's the definition of unconditioned space. It is the absence of obstructibility, the absence of tangibility, the absence of form. Okay, so since form is empty of true existence, how can that space that depends on form be truly existent? It can't. Because remember, something that depends on something else cannot exist from its own side. Yeah. So this verse is looking at the, the unconditioned space. Okay. So the unconditioned space is a non-affirming negative in that it's just the mere negation of obstructing form. Okay? So because obstructing form, which is space's object of negation, does not exist inherently and is mere name and exists by mere name, space too must be a mere designation. Okay, so you have obstructing form, you have space that is posited in dependence upon obstructing form, because this obstructing form doesn't exist inherently. Unconditioned space that depends on it cannot exist inherently. Okay? So then it goes, so we started with unconditioned space, and that can't exist inherently because form doesn't exist inherently. Now, what does form depend on? Why isn't form inherently existent? It depends on the elements. So that's why the next sentence in the verse says, how can there be form without the elements? There can't be, because the elements are the parts that, in dependence upon which you posit or establish or impute form. Okay? And we also went through earlier in this chapter that the elements themselves don't inherently exist because they exist in mutual dependence upon each other. That you can't have, fire without having something to burn, and you can't have water without having things, to make cohesive, to cohere. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So, and you can't have wind without things that move. Okay. So unconditioned space is empty because it's imputed independence upon the absence of form. Yeah. And form itself, and that's empty of true existence. And why is form empty? Because the elements are empty. Why are the elements empty? Because they're mutually dependent. Okay? So therefore, the mere designation also does not exist. So anything that's designated in dependence on something else that is not truly existent, that designated object also is not truly existent. Okay? So form or material objects depend on and cannot exist without their parts, the elements. Since the elements lack inherent existence, so do the material objects that are composed of them and that are designated in dependence upon them. Okay? Since the basis of designations, since the bases for designations don't exist inherently, the designated objects also lack inherent existence. Therefore, the mere designation also does not exist. Okay, since the elements lack inherent existence, so do the forms designated in dependence upon them. And since form is empty of inherent existence, so is space, which is designated in dependence on the absence of form. Okay, so saying that things are mere names doesn't mean that they're sounds and words. Yeah, you can't say that the thermos cup is a word. If it were, it couldn't hold water because words can't hold waters. So when we say things are mere name, it doesn't mean that literally. It means that they are posited by being merely named, independent upon dependence on conceptuality. Okay, so there's different ways of saying this in English. Okay, that they're merely conceptually designated, and they're merely conceptually fabricated. Do those two give you different feelings? Yeah? What's the difference in the feeling?
Designated means there's already something out there. Fabricated means it comes together at that time.
Yeah. So when we say designated, in our mind, we're having the Svatantrika view. There's something there, and we're designating it. Okay? When you say it's fabricated by conceptuality, I don't know about you, but something in my mind goes, no, it's not. It's not fabricated by conceptuality, because something fabricated by conceptuality would not exist. Because my conceptuality makes up, a turtle with a mustache. And I can have a perfect visualization of a turtle with a mustache. Can't you? If one of those wax mustaches, that curls around, and the turtle's just kind of looking at you with their mustache, so that is something that's fabricated by conceptuality. But don't tell me that I'm fabricated by conceptuality in the same way that that turtle's mustache is. Okay, so you know I'm not fabricated by conceptuality. Okay? But remember before when we had the example of seeing the snake on the rope? Yeah? And the example of, you know, the whole process of conceptuality of imputing snake on rope is the same thing, the process of imputing I in dependence upon the collection of our 5 aggregates. The method of imputation is exactly the same. So aren't they both fabricated by conceptuality?
No.
Well, yes, they're both fabricated by conceptuality. Yeah, in the sense that just as there is absolutely no snake in that rope, in that coiled thing, there is absolutely no I in the collection of the aggregates. In that way, the manner of designation or fabrication is exactly the same. The object being designated is not there in the basis of designation. Yeah? And then you really go, it's like there's no snake in the rope and there's no me in the aggregates? No, there's a me in the aggregates. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fabricated by conceptuality. But it still exists. Then you say, well, how can it still exist if it's fabricated, you know, by conceptuality, and so is the turtle's mustache, and so is the snake? What's the difference between them now? If all 3 of them are fabricated by conceptuality, how are they different? Yeah. Well, the rope cannot function as a snake. And the appearance of the mustache can't function as a mustache. It's probably a piece of seaweed that got stuck on the turtle's nose. But the person can function.
Therefore, functionality is truly existent.
Therefore, functionality is truly existent. Yeah.
Way to go, Jill.
Well, no, because functionality depends on other things. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that when you go through it, and you know, and it drives you crazy, and it makes you nervous. You know, I'm designated by conceptuality. That's okay. I'm fabricated by conceptuality. I am not fabricated by anything. I am here. But then you could say, but I was fabricated by my mother and father. Yeah? Weren't we fabricated by our parents? Yeah, okay, I'm fabricated by my parents, but I'm not fabricated by conceptuality. I'm here, really here, independent. Nothing can make me go away. Isn't that the way we feel? That's the object of negation. That thing that we feel so strongly is right there, is the whole thing that doesn't exist. Okay, verse 100.
So the fabricated by conceptual then is the prasangika.
Yeah. Yeah, Everybody else says there's something else there. And see, that's the thing with the Svatantrika Madhyamikas. Things exist by appearing, they appear and then they're designated. So their definition of emptiness, or their definition of the object of negation, is something that exists without being designated after appearing to a non-defective consciousness. This, without being designated after appearing to a non-defective consciousness. So a consciousness, that doesn't have, jaundice or, some kind of obscuration. So something appears to that non-defective consciousness, and then it's designated. And that's how things exist. Yeah. So they say things are empty of existing without being designated, upon something that's appearing to a non-existent, to a non-defective consciousness. So they say you need both, the appearance to the non-defective consciousness and the imputation. And that sounds really good until you say, but if they appeared to the non-defective consciousness, why do they need to be imputed? Yeah? If they appear to that non-defective consciousness that knows it as it is, there's no need for it to be imputed. So then, then the Svatantrika Madhyamika's presentation doesn't make as much sense as I wanted it to. And then you go back, okay, so things, they don't have to appear to a non-defective consciousness. They're just imputed. No. They have to appear. Otherwise, we just make them up and they're totally non-existent. But then you go back again. But if they already appear to that consciousness, then they don't need to be imputed. Okay, so you go back and forth. Yeah, because our resistance to emptiness is so strong. Okay, verse 100. One should consider feelings, discriminations, volitional factors, and consciousnesses in the same manner that one considered the elements and self. Hence, the 6 constituents are selfless. So remember way back when we had the verse, the person is not earth, not water, not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness. What other person could there be? Okay, so this verse 100 is like a summary verse, but it's saying we just use the example of the first aggregate form to dissect it and to show how it wasn't truly existent. Now go back and use the similar kinds of analysis with the other aggregates. And then you see that all 6 constituents are selfless. So if all 6 constituents are empty of true existence, then the person dependent upon them can also not truly exist. In any case, the person can't truly exist because you can't find it in, the basis of designation or separate from the basis of designation. Okay, so it's good, usually they use form as like the example and then say so too with the rest of the aggregates, and we say yes and then go on to the next thing. We should really go through all the other aggregates, and really check them out and see, how are they dependent? Okay, so the feeling aggregate is the next one. Yeah. So what does the feeling aggregate depend on? No, well, it's happy, it's pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings, or pleasurable, painful, and neutral feelings. Yeah, happy, unhappy, neutral feelings. Many different ways to translate. Okay. So, what does a feeling depend on? Contact. Yeah, and karma. Yeah. And it depends on the object, it depends on the sense faculty, it depends on the consciousness, it depends on the mental factor of contact, depends on the karma. Yeah. So is there some kind of feeling that exists from its own side? You bet there is, because when my knee hurts, it is not dependent on anything. This is truly existent pain, and I want it to stop ASAP.
If it was truly existent pain, how could it stop?
Very good. Okay. If it were truly existent, how could it stop? Why wouldn't it be able to stop if it were truly existent?
Because something else would have to act upon it to make it stop. Therefore, it couldn't be truly existent.
Yeah. Yeah. Something else would have to act upon it. And something that is receptive to being acted upon and changes when acted upon cannot have its own nature that's independent of everything else. But when your knee hurts or your back hurts or something hurts,
You don't care one way or the other.
yeah, right.
It's there. It's there.
Yeah.
You want it to stop.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because, we can think about emptiness as long as we're comfortable. Yeah? As soon as we're in the least bit uncomfortable, we cannot contemplate the emptiness of the discomfort. Because our mind is like, holding onto it like this. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
I always get a sense that when the unpleasant feelings arise, I have much stronger sense of self than I do when the unpleasant feelings arise.
When the pleasant ones are,
unpleasant
when the
ones,
unpleasant,
much more into myself.
than when you have the pleasant ones. Yeah. Because the unpleasant ones are threatening. Yeah.
And unpleasant.
Huh?
And unpleasant.
Yeah. From their own side. Yeah, this feeling is unpleasant without depending on my body. Doesn't it feel that way? Yeah. But then, Shantideva says, like when somebody hits you and then you hurt, he said, well, we always blame the other guy for hitting us, but we're the one who took this body that is receptive to experiencing pain. So why don't we blame our own ignorance for taking this body? Yeah? So, when we hurt, why don't we say, well, why did I just kind of go along with my ignorance all along and not meditate on emptiness and cut this cycle so I didn't have this kind of body? We don't think like that when something hurts. We think, my body that I love so much, that is me that I never want to be separated from, hurts. And this is the worst thing in the universe. And you're telling me that feeling is fabricated by conceptuality? That pain is not fabricated by conceptuality. It is real. I feel it. And if you don't believe me, I'll give you some too. That's amazing, isn't it, how we think? Amazing. Okay.
What's amazing is that we even entertain the idea that maybe it's not.
Yeah. That's why, Aryadeva says that even thinking, thinking about emptiness for a minute is like it starts to shred inherent samsara. Yeah. Okay, so this completes the commentary to the first chapter of the Precious Garland by Nagarjuna, entitled Higher Rebirth and Highest Good. So we finished the first of the 5 chapters. Hooray! The next chapter is an interwoven explanation of the causes and effects of higher rebirth and highest good. So the same topics as in chapter 1, but in chapter 1, first he did the higher rebirth and then highest good. Here they're interwoven. He starts with highest good, goes to higher rebirth, comes back to highest good. Okay, so interwoven. So that's where we will be next week.
Do you know, did he actually write in chapters, or did someone later, or do you know that someone later break them up?
I don't know. Well, no, if it, it says this is the end of the commentary to the chapter. And so I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's a nice way to divide things. Yeah. Yeah.
Why do they, in verse 93,
Oh.
it feels a little bit like a leap when you said this thing about this is a non-conceptual wisdom, it's a non-dual mind, there's no consciousness here perceiving an object over there, because it's like water, pouring water, the mind perceiving its own nature.
Yeah.
How do they, it seems a little bit like a leap to say the mind perceiving its own nature.
Well, what's the nature of the mind?
Well, it's empty, but I don't know, it just feels like they've left out a step in explaining how
No,
works.
no, it's complete. I mean, the mind is perceiving the emptiness of all phenomena at that point, when it's having the non-dual perception. But what makes it especially powerful is the mind is seeing its own nature accurately. My seeing the emptiness of the thermos, that's really not going to get me out of samsara. My seeing the emptiness of myself? Yes. My seeing the emptiness of my mind, which is what I usually hold as being the self? Yeah, that's going to be much, much more powerful. So the wisdom's actually seeing the emptiness of everything, but the powerful part is that the mind's seeing its own true nature. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Back to the fabricated by conceptuality.
Uh-huh.
It seems like that. It seems like we are actually creating the object, like we're the cause of the object.
Uh-huh.
But actually, isn't it that the object's existence is established, and not that we're like creating it?
No, we are creating it. We're not the only thing that's creating it. It has its own parts, but the name and concept are helping to create it, because without it being designated, there's no way to say it's there. Yeah? Try and think of something that exists, that you can say exists, without a mind conceiving and labeling it. Everything that you say exists means that somebody's conceived and labeled it. Yeah? So the whole point is that there's no objective existence out there unrelated to our mind. things exist in relationship to our mind. It doesn't mean that everything we designate exists. Okay, the snake doesn't exist when there's just a coiled rope. Yeah? But so you need all different sorts of conditions to come together. But one essential element is the mind that conceives and designates. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more correct to say that we're creating our experience of the object?
Well, that's another level. How we're creating our experience is much grosser, because we're creating our experience. Okay, how I create my experience, I look at, I look at some person and I go, that person isn't very friendly to me. They don't smile. They turn away every time I look at them. They must not like me. They must think I'm a really awful person. And then I get angry, I get depressed. That is my conceptuality creating my experience, because I'm projecting a story on that other person that doesn't exist on them.
Yeah, that's not really what I was
Yeah.
thinking about. I'm thinking, because we're not creating, that singing bowl is sitting on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But my experience of it sitting there, or my relationship to it, is what I create with my mind. I mean, there's particles there. It's not
Mhm.
like my mind is suddenly shooting up, because that's mind only, right?
Yeah, there's an external object, but it's not objective out there independent of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess what we're getting at is that it seems like fabricated by conceptuality means,
We built it.
yeah, like as soon as we designate, it pops into existence, and it wasn't there before.
Well, you know, does this become a bowl? Would anybody think of using it as a bowl before it is designated bowl? Or gong. Would anybody, we call this a gong, would anybody think of using it as a gong before somebody designates gong? Yeah? So it needs somebody designating it so that we can, know kind of what it is. But then we forget we designated it, and we think it has that kind of existence from its own side, radiating, hi, I'm a gong.
Right. But there needs to be something there in order for us to even...
But see, as soon as we say something there's really a gong in here. You see? There's really a gong. Somewhere in here, I'm sure there's a gong. No, there's the four elements, and there's whatever, those things are, okay, yeah, but,
And the functionality of it.
but, somebody else could look at this, and, yes, it's a hat, yes, or it's a statue platform, and you put your statue on top of it. Yeah. Or it's a doorstop.
Or it's a planter.
Or it's a planter. Yeah.
Or with cornflakes and milk.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
a few weeks ago you were saying, actually, in the case of an inference, the mental image of emptiness is the appearing object, but emptiness is the apprehended object.
Yes.
And so only that is appearing to the mind. So what is this mental image of emptiness? In
That
indifference?
it's the conceptual appearance.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have the appearing object, the apprehended object, okay? The apprehended object is the thing that you're apprehending. The appearing object is the thing that's appearing. Yeah. When you think of your mother, yeah, what's appearing to your mind is a conceptual appearance of your mother. It's not your mother. So the appearing object is the conceptual appearance. The apprehended object, the object that you're trying to get at, is your mother. Okay? So in the inferential realization of emptiness, the object you're trying to get at is emptiness, but you're perceiving it by means of this conceptual appearance. And that's the appearing object to the mind. Okay?
What does it look like?
Become a Buddha and find out.
Yeah.
Space, it's like space.
Yeah. Okay? Shall we dedicate?
Someone online has a question.
Oh, okay.
Good to clear up their confusion. Was it said that space depends on causes, yet it's called unconditioned?
No, space does not depend on causes. Space depends on being designated, but it doesn't depend on causes in the same way as a pumpkin depends on causes.
Right, then they asked, how does the unobstructability of space fit in there?
Well, space, the definition of space is the lack of obstructability. That's what space is. It's a simple negation of obstructability. Okay? So it's not like you're making space up. Yeah? Oh, here, I just made some space and I'm putting it here. Yeah.
Move your
Yeah.
thermos so you make some space.
Yeah. So it's...
So it's mutually dependent upon the form that's obstructed.
No, it's dependent on form in that it's the absence of form that is unconditioned space. Okay.
But doesn't form have a dependence there too? Couldn't be there if there weren't unobstructed space?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.